Here we go.
Mickey, my moon to me, just
Go with me, go with me.
Everybody wanna play while they're on the play. Everybody better want to play. Better read that with the Bible. Better 55 grand for the rain. My mouth is about gold again. If you have with me, if you want to play, never he got love to breath. We can look at it. Come on, Cannalachia.
Hi, Justin.
Hey, how are ya?
I'm good. It's been a little gloomy lately.
It has. I haven't seen the sun in like 8 days.
I know. It's starting to have that seasonal affective disorder. I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
But we're supposed to get sun tomorrow or Thursday. I can't remember. I think Thursday. I think tomorrow's supposed to rain again. Anyway, I digress. Hi, podcast universe. Thanks for listening, watching, all the good stuff. Excited about today's episode and today's guest because she rules. We've talked a lot about how I grew up in LA, and I thought that I had heard about every kind of yoga. That was until I moved to Kentucky, and I heard about Jaimie Brown's laughter yoga. So with us today is none other than Miss Jaimie Brown. Welcome, welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm very excited to learn more about laughter yoga.
I'm excited too. I've heard about it, but I don't know much about it. So
Right.
I'm excited to learn about it today too.
And amongst other, she does sound healing and other kinds of yoga as well, which she's going to tell us more about. But I think, are we going to get started like we always do with
a little bit of
Canna news?
Yeah, a little news. Let's do that.
I feel like maybe our news intro, we can shorten it. Just
I like to be in this awkward.
No.
This is awesome.
All right. So it's staying. But anyway, I think it's appropriate for my news because that is very much a sound from outer space, and my news, well, not cannabis related this week, is very much Appalachian. Well, it's Kentucky related. I don't know if you've heard this, Jaimie, and I'd love to know what your thoughts are on it. So it was in the news this week that the Lexington Tourism Board is the first city in the world to send a message to aliens, welcoming them and enticing them to come be tourists in Lexington. So apparently the Lex Tourism Board got together with a group of scientists, astrophysicists, I don't know who, and they beamed a message 40 light years into space, into a particular galaxy that scientists say is the most likely to have life form. And the message included the compound for carbon, another compound, a picture of a man, a woman, a picture of a horse, the state of Kentucky, the chemical compound for dopamine, and some music by Lexington's own T.D. Young, which I love. I love that. Like, come, we have horses and blues and dopamine.
So I'm kind of curious. Is Lexington the first like metropolitan area to like send out tourism messages out in space?
That's what this news article claims, is that we're the first to send a tourism come to Lexington, Kentucky. All of the ETs.
Wow. Well, we might have some interesting visitors soon.
I know. It makes me happy. We should have also sent the chemical compound for THC. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That probably would be beneficial.
That would have helped.
Like when a crash copper in Kentucky, for sure.
Right?
That's true.
So but they're saying that it could take 80 years before, because it's 40 light years away, it'll take 40 years for the message to reach, unless they have ways that we don't know about of receiving the message
Sooner.
But then it would take another 40 years for us to receive a response, unless they just come on and visit.
So unless we advance our wellness regimen, we're not going to be here to meet the visitors.
Probably not in 80 years.
Probably not, no.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But it's worth a shot.
It is.
Why not,
Yeah.
I welcome not our alien overlords, And please don't be overlords. I do not welcome Xenu. But I would love for aliens to come visit Lexington. Space aliens. Well, I mean, well, all
Nice aliens. I would love for nice aliens to come
nice
visit.
aliens who appreciate horses and dopamine.
I'm pretty positive that we do already have visitors. From,
Yeah, no, you can ask Chill pretty much every night. I'm outside looking at the stars and I'm going, there's one. But I also might have astigmatism that has not been properly diagnosed because I often see things flashing in the sky, multiple colors, and nobody else sees it.
It's
So
the same star every night.
it's very sparkly. Yes. So
There is one of those out there. There's a star that's the same space. Most stars move, but there's that one, the North Star that stays in the same spot. And
Right.
It's beautiful to look at every night. I love it.
So, but the one it's the star, whatever it is that I'm seeing, flashes multiple different colors. That's all I'm gonna say.
Could be alien.
Could be alien.
Very well could be.
well, I think it's hard to believe that there's not other life. out there,
Absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely. No, I think it's human arrogance to believe that we are the only intelligent life form in the entire cosmos.
Right. I mean, there has to be another life form, whether it's intelligent or not. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
But it is naive to think that we're the only life form. I mean, I'm a researcher, so I even if I do believe something, it's only about 95%.
But I think it's also even Neil deGrasse Tyson, and a number of other astrophysicists have come out and said, even if they're not coming here, even if we're not communicating with them, the probability of other intelligent life forms existing is absolute.
Absolute. I do believe so.
Yeah.
I learned it from my father at a young age, but my father always told me that there have to be aliens.
Yes.
And so I was never ever taught that they don't exist.
Right.
Speaking of bringing it up, that's what I was taught, that there are aliens. We don't know if they're here or not.
Right.
But
No, my dad was fully also in with me that he had seen UFOs. They exist. And I think I've seen them. I've never been abducted. Well, so there was this one time but I don't know if he was actually an alien or a time traveler. But my girlfriend and I lost literally 4 hours in 15 minutes, and it didn't make any sense. And
And no drugs were involved.
No drugs were actually involved at that time. We were waiting for a cab and had a 15-minute conversation with this guy who, while we were waiting, this was in Los Angeles, he closed his eyelid and he said, "This is what they've put in me. What do you call it? They've implanted this." And he had a perfect square shape under his eyelid. And we talked to him for 15, 20 minutes, and we're like, oh, God, this is crazy. Why, he did have a square thing under his eyelid. I don't know what it is. And the next thing I knew, I was like, where is this cab? And I looked at my watch again, and 4 hours had passed, and I had to call another cab.
And it felt like 15 minutes, but it was.
But that's the conversation was because the conversation with him started with, how many moons do you see? I'll never forget that. And I said, I see one. How many do you see? And he started talking about how there was many different moons, but they're only visible to people who have traveled and have these implants and have been abducted. Yeah, it was so anyway. So whether or not I met an alien or an abductee, I don't know. And then I once dated a guy who said that he was an abductee. And I had a very weird happening that I still don't know. Living in LA, it might have been a police chopper. But a beam of light came through my window. But it was dead silent, and usually police choppers
You would hear that.
have a loud noise.
Yeah, you would hear that. Yeah.
But I was also dead. So I don't know.
I've seen things over the years.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like questioning my own sanity, but I'm like, no, I saw that.
Yeah.
And it's even better when you have someone else with you and that's validated. Like, what was that? You saw that, right?
Yeah.
Me and my sister driving down the road, it was small, but it was this is before drones and all that. This
Yeah.
is
And we don't have to get.
in the early 90s.
That's kind of what Dad,
Yeah.
and then they wound up putting in a movie that he was in called Roadie. But Dad swears that he was driving down the freeway in Texas, and this was in the 60s, so it was like even more desolate than
yeah, there's no
wherever it was
drones.
now.
Yeah, there weren't drones. Yeah.
And it wasn't a jerk because it was large. It was large enough that it could house beings, and it stopped in the middle of the freeway, and he stopped his car, and engines and things blinked and blanked, and then it disappeared. And
Yeah, the one I saw did not land. But it was right in front of us, and just kind of flew around and then flew away. And like we saw it go away. Like it didn't disappear. It flew away.
Yeah.
And, like,
I don't remember if his flew away.
it was
or
so
disappeared,
bizarre.
but-
It was so bizarre because it was definitely nothing that we had ever heard of or saw.
Right.
And and in my opinion, it was as close to what a UFO could be.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just me and my sister driving home. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and then I also question all of the like reverse technology stuff that supposedly our government's been doing. That was also
For longer than we want to believe.
want to believe. And so something recently, it was also in the news. This is also regarding it, but it was so. I don't know if you've ever listened to Coast to Coast. It's an AM talk show late at night, Coast to Coast with George Norrie, where he talks about all kinds of supernatural phenomena, from ghosts to, ETs, blah, 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 whatever, angels. And he had, it was a famous Thawar guy called him in a complete panic saying that he previously worked at Area 51. He couldn't talk long, but he wanted us to know that what we think of as aliens at Area 51 are actually altered dimensional, and that they were not here, like that these other dimensional beings had claimed they were here for peace, but he was saying that now we knew that they weren't, and they were infiltrated, blah, blah, blah. All this, and it sounded, crazy, and then all of a sudden the line cut dead. He had actually begun the conversation saying that they're tracing me, and I only have a few minutes. Well, this was like 15, 20 years ago. I actually remember I was listening when this guy called in. And last week they were doing a press conference about aliens and what the government knows. And one of the people specifically used the same term of alternate dimensional or ultra dimensional beings.
Well, I think
It's very odd.
when we start looking at what we call ancient artifacts across the world, and we start looking at temples and these,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're so intricate, and to look at them and think we're not doing that even now with our technology, and it's like, did we digress? Like, I'm just saying, or was it something else?
Or was it both?
Mm-hmm.
Did they get, when you look at Göbekli Tepe and places like that, was there at some point some sort of alternate knowledge that was given to us and then it was wiped out in some sort of ancient
Yeah.
apocalypse?
The question with that I've always heard is how were the pyramids built? Because they're huge blocks of concrete. How did they move it? And all of that. And I've heard some theories, because they were, they had all the pulleys and the levers and all the things. But even then, we still haven't been able to.
And sound.
Right, and sound, yeah. But I don't think we've been able to do it using the primitive pulleys and things that we feel that they had. So it's like, well, we think maybe, but probably not, is what I've read about the pyramids, because it's like there has to be some sort of force that we weren't aware of that they had, because even now it would be really difficult with the strong machines that we have to lift those type of blocks.
And I think about things like, the accurate biblical description of what an angel is.
Right.
Oh, that's kind of
Right.
spooky
It's
looking. Yeah.
like super like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. that shows up in the room with you. You're going to be like, what?
You are not here for, yeah. You are not.
More demon-esque.
I don't know if it's demon, just not, we see graphic depictions of beautiful women with long flowing gowns and wings, and then
It's got 1,000,000 eyeballs.
And then 1,000,000 eyeballs, right? The
It's a
alien.
sphere with 1,000,000 eyeballs. Looking directly at you there and there and
Yeah.
there.
Anyway,
Well, and it's interesting that we're talking about this topic because I seen a guy the other day that came across one of my social media feeds, and he was being interviewed, and his name and who he's with just completely is in the back of my mind somewhere, and I'm not pulling that out. But he was talking about how when looking at some of the images of Mars, some of the things that have they look fuzzy or could possibly have been digitally altered so that you can't really tell what it is that there is a discussion that there is possibly some sort of proof of another life or possibly life on another planet, but that information would not be placed out into the public's eye. And one of the number one reasons that he specifically says that they won't is because it would possibly cause every like denomination of faith and religious practice to completely almost falter, because then it makes you question everything you've been taught. So that's very interesting. When I heard that, I was like, I hadn't really thought about it, but yeah, it would, wouldn't it? It would bring up a lot of questions.
Intentionally hiding it.
well, yeah. I mean, when intentionally, I always, if there's one place on Earth where I could go and be invisible or just allowed to be, and have at it, is the library at really in Rome.
Here? You're talking about at the Vatican.
At the Vatican.
Vatican.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Wow, my
Yeah.
brain.
Yeah.
The gloom has
Yeah.
eaten my brain. Yeah, no, the library at the Vatican. That nobody's allowed to know what is in it. It's
Well,
like,
Right.
if they're listening and they would like to let a couple people come in and just take a look, we're more than happy to come over and check it out.
just check out what you got
Yeah.
in there. What do you got in all those, hermetically sealed chambers? Thanks.
Yeah, I'd love to know.
Thanks, Mr. Pope.
Well,
so
he enjoys Kentucky bourbon.
the Pope does?
Yeah, we've got a local priest in the region that makes certain that he has some of the best bourbon, and it all comes from here.
Oh, but I guess
So,
that's not surprising.
why not have a couple folks that, what about every seed-bearing plant? We're standing up for the cannabis, so
Yeah.
we'll send you some of that too if we can go down in the library.
We'll bring you cannabis and bourbon, and
And we
you
can-
let us into the library.
We can sit around and look and read and learn, and it'll be a real educational moment,
I'm surprised those guys didn't put bourbon on the message out to the aliens.
They think they actually I think that's one of the other. I don't have a
Probably
thing.
some bourbon. I would imagine bourbon's in there.
We have to we have to shut off all of our devices before we start recording the show because they interfere. But I think it was there was like an image of a bottle of bourbon. Something.
nice,
There was
nice.
like, yeah, there was a whole bunch of stuff in there. Those were the ones I listed were just the ones that stuck out. But yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's
Yep.
that's very,
I
very
like
cool.
it. I like it.
In other news, if you don't mind, I'm going to share a little bit back toward the topic of cannabis. And in today's headlines, we obviously pre-record this, but the Democrats in Washington are urging the Biden administration to move forward with descheduling marijuana in the United States. And they're really pushing for that. And then from here in the Commonwealth in Kentucky, if we look at from the opposite side of the aisle, we have a Republican Senator Southworth who has sponsored a concurrent resolution, which is kind of like speaking to Washington to ask them to, hey, let's reschedule marijuana. We urge you to do that. And, our legislative body last year, I want to say it was $2 million that they sent over to UK, pretty much allotted for cannabis research. And a lot of the research that I think that the university would like to do and what some facilities would like to do cannot really move forward properly if we don't have that rescheduled or descheduled to allow them to do it. So it's that's not getting really deep into it, but that's happening, and there's more and more discussion happening. And I think that just goes back to the majority of people I believe, not only in the Commonwealth but in this nation, are utilizing cannabis in some form or fashion. So, we can sit and kick this can further down the road, either in Frankfurt or in Washington, D.C., but ultimately what's happening is that the people are moving forward with their cannabis use. So let's move forward in our research, and I think having you here today, Jaimie, is to not only talk about laughter yoga and how that can better our lives, but maybe pick your brain a little bit with your experience in researching drugs and other types of like alcohol and substances that people have used, and maybe how that affects them psychologically, both negatively and positively. So it's great to have you here talk about those
Thank
things
you.
too.
Yes.
But
Yes, my
so-
day job, my research.
So that was one thing I didn't bring up, but also Jaimie has spent the past 19 years doing
26.
26 years. Or since you were
Since I
you were
was 19.
26?
Since I was 19.
Oh, since you were 19.
Yes, and I'm
Got it.
46 now. So what is that? 19 to 46. I have been a drug and alcohol researcher and IAAA funded, and it's just been really amazing journey. And that's kind of why I'm on this side with cannabis, is because studying drugs and alcohol this long, I am an advocate, and I do believe that the laws need to be changed. In my research, I found that the Netherlands pretty much have the best rules when it comes to drugs and all drugs and alcohol. They leave it to the doctors, right? It's not a criminal offense like it is here in the United States. And making it criminal is pretty much the only thing wrong with marijuana that I can see in my research and behavior in society, and just and what marijuana brings is mostly positive. And I just really am an advocate of it. And like I said, I've been researching drugs and alcohol for most of my life, and definitely have seen negatives of all drugs. I mean, inhaling smoke, that one thing, but marijuana has not been, related to lung diseases like cancer and things like that. And so it's like, yes, you are inhaling smoke, but there is still not evidence that it's like cigarettes. You're not really getting lung diseases and dying.
Right.
So, yeah, anyway, I digress.
Well, and I think, you're talking about inhaling, while smoking any substance is probably not the best thing for our lungs, the natives used tobacco prior to today's tobacco has a lot of other stuff added to it, but everything from smoking other types of herbs as well. But there are terpenes that are in cannabis and other plants, obviously, and some of those are bronchial dilators. So for people who actually deal with things like breathing issues and asthma and those sort of things, they actually can. Obviously, there's the balance between what else is in that. Is that a isolated derivative that you are, using as one substance, or are you using something like just smoking cannabis for that?
Right. It is definitely an expectorant. Like when you're smoking cigarettes, you're not actively clearing your lungs, but marijuana, like people say cough to get off or whatever, it's definitely something that it is considered an expectorant, and it does help clean the gunk out of your lungs. And like I said, people don't smoke that much to, like bronchitis. Cigarette smokers get bronchitis twice a year. I used to smoke cigarettes. I know. Marijuana users don't get those, chronic lung issues, generally speaking, from my research and what I've seen. So yeah, it's like the connection isn't there, which is quite fascinating.
That's very interesting. And I actually was a smoker. It's been about 9 years. I quit smoking.
Congratulations.
But I don't remember having bronchitis or anything while I was a smoker. However, the years that I did smoke cigarettes, I also smoked cannabis. So I wonder if that could have played a role there,
Yeah, and also, it does. How many cigarettes do you smoke? If you're
Right.
They say less than 7 cigarettes a day, then you're not going to increase your risk of lung diseases. Which is why I think in general most marijuana users aren't smoking, 10 joints a day. on general days, but
I've met a few.
right, that's true, they do, and they probably might have a little bit more lung reaction. So it is 100% how much smoke you're inhaling. Now with the cigarettes and all the chemicals in the cigarettes, I've read some research that's adding other problems, and so with marijuana, the vape stuff, I have no idea. We don't know what that's doing to your lungs, like really. But there is a lot of research about marijuana smoke and nicotine smoke, and it's really the amount. How much are you inhaling?
Right.
How much smoke are you inhaling a day?
Well, one of the things that I like to think about is constantly looking back to what did our ancestors do? What did the natives do? And while just because some of the things that those generations before us did doesn't always make it the right thing or the best thing, because we're learning every day and there's constantly new information. I know you as a researcher, I would think you would agree with me on that. But
every hour there's new information.
Right, exactly. So it's kind of like when I'm thinking about it, and I think about what our ancestors did, whether that be Native Americans, when we go back to people living on the land, smoking was a major thing, whether that be tobacco, whether that be a spiritual religious thing, or whether that would be that they were utilizing a plant for its medicinal value. I mean, there's tons of plants out there that can be used as expectorants to lower inflammation. And, there's a big argument, and there has been in Frankfurt when they were discussing cannabis about, will it be quote unquote a smoking bill or a non-smoking bill? And again, my personal opinion is that we need to leave conditions between the patient and the practitioner,
Right.
and also
that should not be included in the law.
Yeah,
'Cause,
exactly.
I mean, marijuana, in some cases, it has to be smoked in order to help medicinally. Eating it is a whole nother thing. I mean, and in the research, it shows it's a whole nother thing. Actually, smoking, from the research that I've read, smoking. You really can't get too high from smoking marijuana. Like, you might get tired and pass out or whatever, but eating marijuana, eating THC is a whole nother thing. You can eat enough because you're going to keep getting higher, and you can eat enough to kind of hallucinate. I've been around people who've done that.
Well,
and it's not a bad thing. It's not like it's messy. You're not going to overdose. There's no way you can overdose on marijuana. There are no cases of overdose that I've read, medically overdosing. But it is different. Like when you're eating and when you're smoking, it's two different medicines, totally different
And
medicines.
I guess that kind of comes back to like a second pass method, or you're ingesting it, it's got to go through the digestive process.
exactly. That's
and
why
then
it's
through the
different.
liver.
Yeah.
And so
That's
it's going
exactly
through
why it's
that
different.
process.
Route of administration. That's why
Right.
so many drugs have different routes of administration. Obviously, it matters.
Yeah.
Well, and with smoking, I think, when we first, I think it was our first episode when Amanda and I shared like why we use cannabis. I started using it young, trying it recreationally the way most people do.
Right.
And I learned and discovered that it was helping me with like generalized anxiety. And I didn't have the side effects of certain pharmaceuticals when I used it. So I was like, this is what it felt like to be, quote unquote, what I was observing around me as being normal, And when I think about us telling people they cannot smoke cannabis, there are people that have some major anxiety disorders and
digestive issues.
Exactly.
If you eat it, it does not help with the digestive issues.
So that's interesting.
Smoking is the only thing that.
So I have IBS, and I only use edibles these days.
Oh, okay. So and it does help.
It absolutely it does. But I have IBS with lacerated ulcers in my intestine.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if that
makes a little
particular-
difference.
because
Yeah.
and there's a lot of research done on supposedly ulcers are it's caused by a bacteria called Helicobacter. We don't, for whatever reason in America, I learned this when I was in the UK after I had been diagnosed, because in Europe they actually have, I guess, a cure for ulcers because it's just a bacteria and there's like whatever, you can take it. Here we don't. They just give you a pill and go take this for the rest of your life. And so instead, my doctor at the time, I was 17 when I was diagnosed. and cannabis had been legalized in California for medical reasons 2 years prior. And he was like, let's just put you on. And so he started me with smoking, but then I moved to eating because my parents, I would smoke in the house and they'd be like, what the fuck? It was a whole thing. Oh, Chill told me to mention that too. So I told a story about Dad breaking all my bongs in my closet. And then later on, I told a story about all my bongs crashing because of an earthquake. Both happened. So he smashed all my bongs and then I rebuilt the collection years later. And years later, I had an earthquake. Anyway, going back. So I started making my own chocolates and butters and things like that, and it has always helped.
I think over time, using things like edibles, I mean, a regimen like you're saying could really, if someone's dealing with an inflammatory issue.
Oh yeah,
or
edibles
if-
have their place in in the medicine for sure.
Well, and the other thing I think
it's
we
just
should
longer. It just takes a little bit to absorb it and digest it. But
Yeah.
you can get a higher dose, like I was saying earlier with the edibles. But you can also, like you said, maintain things a little bit easier because the smoking is like quickly in, but it's also quickly out.
Right.
So there's benefits to both sides.
That's why, like, so I usually take it at night about an hour before I go to bed because then it has time, like, it'll keep me asleep instead of, waking up from cramps or whatever,
Oh yeah.
Well, and I think this was something that did this happen? I can't remember when you said this all started for you. Was this something when you were very, very young or just like young adult?
The IBS?
Yeah. Huh?
When I was 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because today, I think we're seeing more and more because of fortified foods and pesticides and those sort of things. But however, we do live in a nation where I feel like we overprescribe antibiotics. And when we do that, I mean, I'm not against antibiotics. If you need them, you need them. But the thing is we're killing off gut flora at that point. And if people aren't reestablishing that, then they're creating a really messed up biome, which ultimately could turn into inflammatory issues. So again, here's another reason that if you've been on a bunch of antibiotics, you might want to get you some probiotics and some edibles to help, keep inflammation down and allow yourself to build up a healthy
And
gut
heal,
biome.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
heal.
And I haven't looked into it, but I'm pretty sure because of they say that ulcers are often stress related. Well, yeah, you have a lot of childhood trauma going on in here. Because when I was 17 and I went to the hospital originally, they actually thought I had cancer. It was a whole. I was in the hospital for 3 days while they were doing all kinds of tests and MRIs until they finally did an endoscope because they were like, "This is a giant tumor in you." And I was, it was a whole. And then they were like, "Nope, just kidding. It's an ulcer, but you're 17 and you shouldn't have an ulcer."
Well, when you mention that, I know from like the Eastern standpoint of beliefs of taking the word disease, it's dis-ease. And so when our mind or our body or spirit is in dis-ease, we are in a state of disease. And so we are creating that atmosphere. So stress, yes. I mean, you're bringing the body out of balance, and cannabis certainly can help us with that. So I will tell you, you had started mentioning something a while ago, and I just had this moment, and this could be like a little ADHD going on. But just so I don't forget, I wanted to make a correction because we just came out of our news segment. On episode 2, I wanted to make a correction. We had discussed that Texas had decriminalized marijuana, and that is incorrect. Texas has actually passed it through their House to decriminalize it, but it never made it past the Senate. And somehow or another, in this crazy world of everything changing when it comes to cannabis in the U.S., that was just that information came out wrong, and I found out later, and so we will update that on our social media below that post. But I wanted to throw that out there for our listeners because I don't want to lead people astray on that topic. Sorry, not to change it. We'll come back to what we're talking about, but it was on my mind, and I want to put that out there.
It's tough to keep up. I mean, we're at 38 states now, and it grows every single day. Right? Yeah. Applause. And it grows every day. And that's why those 12 senators, 11 Democrats, and Bernie Sanders, because he's officially independent now. But that's why the 12 of them wrote the letter that they wrote to the Biden administration. We talked last week about how the HHS, Health and Human Services, right, has recommended rescheduling from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, which would put it into pharmaceuticals.
Right.
Well, these 12 senators have come out and said that's just not enough, and it creates Well, no, they want it to be descheduled entirely off of the Controlled Substances Act, because if you reschedule it to Schedule 3, it now becomes a pharmaceutical.
Right. It shouldn't be a scheduled drug at all.
Right. Yeah. And so that's what these 12 senators and counting
I mean,
are.
Schedule 3 is better than Schedule 1, but you still have the possibility of going into prison.
Right.
And no one should be in prison for marijuana.
And now you have a whole issue with the FDA and how they're regulating it, and they have to create a whole new agency within their agency to deal with cannabis, and
And the statement that you just said that no one should be in prison for marijuana, that's absolutely true. If there's a handful of folks that I like to say sprinkled pharmaceuticals across eastern Kentucky and Appalachia, and they're not sitting in prison, then a person who is utilizing marijuana shouldn't either.
Oh, yeah.
So
100%, 100%.
I'm pretty passionate about that because I think all of us, and we've talked about that in other episodes, have, and I think you might touch on that, but we've all been affected by someone, or we love someone who deals with substance abuse issues. And it's certainly a topic that needs to be discussed. And I always say it's not necessarily the substance, it's the trauma. We don't talk about the trauma, for what individuals going through a journey. Why are they trying to numb that or quiet that? And so,
and are they using it as medicine, or are they using it as an escape?
Exactly.
Because really, every drug that is abused is a medicine. I mean, it is used medicinally. I mean, even cocaine.
I was going to say the coca leaf even
is used medicinally
when not mixed with battery acids. And
right.
If you ever saw the real Narcos, that's what made me. I'm not going to lie. I used to do a little bit of cocaine here and there, and then I watched the real Narcos all the way through. Now, have you seen the real one with the documentary series where they're like having shootouts and with the it's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing.
And he traces cocaine from Los Angeles all the way down into Colombia, where the guy who's actually picking it off the plant and turning it into cocaine as a drug, as a substance, and he's literally mixing it with fucking battery acid.
Right. Oh,
and
yeah, it's insane. It's
and he's
insane.
like, yeah, don't touch that.
And
Don't-
baby laxative.
Don't breathe any of this. The baby laxative comes later.
That comes later, right?
That's when
That
they
comes
cut. That's when they cut the stuff that's made with battery acid.
All right, cut the battery acid.
But then he goes. But then there's episodes of I don't remember if it was Expedition Unknown or what, but it was one of Bourdain's shows where he's in Colombia and they're hiking, or I think he might have been in Peru, wherever they're hiking way up into the mountains somewhere, and the person gives him a coca leaf to chew on because it's, I don't know if expectorant is the right, but it helps when you're at that elevation.
Like a numbing. It has some sort of numbing.
No, it helps with the breath,
Breathing,
with
okay.
the oxygen intake. And when you're that high up, if you chew on a coca leaf, you have an easier time
breathing
and getting more oxygen.
Well,
I'm thinking,
or
how the what was it?
anaphylactic shock,
Yeah.
like using adrenaline.
Yes,
Is it
exactly.
less,
Yeah,
less
yeah.
oxygen, more oxygen? Yeah, there's less oxygen
Right.
the higher. Okay.
Well, and it's a thinner.
Yeah, it's a
oxygen is
thinner.
thinner.
Yeah.
I've never even thought about that, but once you say it, it's like, oh yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of a quick shift the first time I went to Denver,
Yeah.
Colorado. I had a moment for just a little bit when I got there. I was like, whoa, I feel a little funny, and that's what it was.
Yeah.
The altitude.
I
oh,
got
yeah.
me some.
The
I got
altitude.
like canned oxygen,
Yeah.
and just huffed that, looking like I was huffing like I wasn't huffing paint, but it looked like I was walking down the street huffing
It's like
paint.
he's walking on sunshine. So sorry
My
for that
God.
inappropriate reference. If you know, you know. Anyway,
Well,
so but coca leaf, it has it's
Very medicinal. I mean, cocaine has lots of medicinal
Yeah.
properties.
Yep.
For sure. Like I said, Netherlands, they classify all drugs as medicines, and if you have a problem with the medicine, then you go to your doctor.
yeah.
Well, and I think, I personally have a plant problem. I love plants. I'm like the person you see saving the plant that's on the clearance rack. I don't need that other plant. But plants, they really are beneficial. I mean, we obviously know that they help to clean the air and those different things and provide us with food and stuff. But the compounds that are in plants, I mean, obviously that's where our first medicine came from.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we wouldn't have like anesthetics if it wasn't
Right.
for heroin, right?
Right.
Am I wrong? in
Right.
that?
Oh,
And
100%.
opium and that whole the opioid family.
And I just think about like teas, my tea rack that I have at home. People are like, "Why do you have?" And like, because they're all those so different.
It's all
you
it's
know?
all for something.
I might want that, but I might need that. You never
Right.
know.
Yeah, it's like, what's going on in your life today? Let me fix you a cup of tea. You
I
know?
mean, I've been known to have 2 different bags in my cup because it's like I
course.
need this and this, and like and it's herbal medicine is real and it definitely
is.
matters.
I
And-
talked about last, but one of my favorite teas is actually, I was bummed because I forgot to buy some when we were in LA over New Year's, but it's Positivity, and it's a cannabis tea. And
Yeah.
it's one of my, because they have different blends for like, sleepy time, which is like chamomile, and, an uplifting one that has the ginger.
And you
Yeah.
just need to make sure you have, well, I'm not sure how that is. I have to look, but I get all sciencey with it. But you have to have some sort of fat to get the THC out of the actual flower,
Well, I think
which is
it's-
where we go back to cooking, right?
I
You know?
think the Positivities are all, it's infused. So it's
Okay,
not
so
just
it's already
like-
infused. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's not just
you
like
can't, yeah,
flour.
You can't take like a piece of marijuana, put it in water,
No.
and get high. It doesn't work that way. But
Yeah.
so I'm like, I'm sure they've done something to it that it's able to.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
I think they take like whatever the chamomile and
And
the
they've
stuff,
already infused
and they
that.
infuse that
Yeah.
with.
Well, and sometimes
That
Sometimes
makes sense. Yeah.
sometimes they'll add like a milk powder or something of a fat.
Some sort of fat.
to-
As long
yeah,
as there's
it's
any
in
type of
there,
fat,
yeah.
then it
The
will. Then it will.
Positivities don't have that, but you
Okay.
can taste the terpenes
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
in it, but you can't smell them.
Well, but terpenes
If
are
that makes
also very medicinal as well.
Yeah.
I
That's a whole.
mean, so
Yeah. That's a
that-
whole nother level.
That's yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There's another
That's
conversation.
a whole nother. That's a whole nother episode.
Yeah, that's a whole
you know?
nother episode.
Maybe 2 or 3.
Yes.
Sorry, my laughter comes out. This is
I
why I'm
love
a
it.
really good laughter yoga leader. So yes, like I said, I'm a researcher of 20 years, and laughter came in 2015. And because being a researcher, people take things very serious in that field, and the field of psychology and behavioral sciences kind of combine those two when you
Yeah.
study drugs and alcohol. But laughter yoga came to me at the right time, because I was so stressed. There was like so much going on, and I took the class. So laughter yoga, where I teach it mostly is at festivals. So the Playthink Festival, Moonshiners Ball Festival, like different outside events is amazing for laughter yoga. I guess since COVID, I used to do a lot of indoor stuff, but then since COVID, I do mostly outdoor stuff. But I'm trying to change it. I'm trying to get back indoors. Because laughter, you're really like laughing in people's face.
Yeah.
So it's definitely an anti-COVID thing is laughter,
Right.
laughter yoga.
Yeah, the first time I experienced, well, I didn't partake in the class, but there was a group of us sitting around at a festival, and laughter yoga was next. I was like, what is happening?
What the heck is going on here?
I'm too high. I'm confused.
Someone has told me that they couldn't do laughter yoga because they weren't stoned, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you do not have to be stoned to be, do laughter yoga. It has nothing to do with marijuana."
Yet, no, what had happened? We were having a sesh over here in this section of the field, and someone told a joke, and then you were on the other section, and it was just the timing was perfect.
It was perfect.
That like everybody started laughing. I was like, they are too far away to have heard that. Do they all have sonic ears?
Why are they laughing with us? Why are they laughing with us? That's awesome. Yeah, because laughter yoga is so when I say like you don't have to be high to laugh, but what happens when you laugh is you do get your body reacts very similar to if you're smoking marijuana, like in terms of the chemicals that are released in the brain. It lowers stress hormones and things like that, and it just reacts to your body very, very well. Everyone's like, things can't do all of that, They're like when you have a list of benefits, and you're like, really it can. I mean, they truly can. And laughter, lowers your increases your serotonin and lowers your cortisol, but it also increases oxygen. It works your six pack. You get physical benefits from it. But what's most important is that you give yourself permission to laugh out loud. Because even when you go to a comedy show, and you're like, haha. You're like everyone most of the time they inhibit their laughter, right? They never go and that does take practice to be able to laugh like that, like on cue, right?
I do, and then she'll ask, what the fuck is wrong
What is
with
wrong
you?
with you? But it matters.
Every time I go to a comedy show, I am probably the loudest laughter in the room.
As you
and
should.
He's like,
But and I
like,
bet
what are
you
you
the comedian
doing?
loves it. I bet you the comedian loves it.
Right? It's not inappropriate. It's a
And-
comedy show.
And what's also amazing is I'm sure other people are laughing louder because you're laughing louder.
I hope so.
Yeah. It's giving, like, by you laughing out loud, it gives them permission to laugh out loud. And,
I agree. It's
and
contagious.
it matters.
It's
totally
contagious.
Oh,
It
well,
really
we know
is.
laughter is contagious.
And another
That's definite.
the other thing I think about is like how that probably helps to release the diaphragm.
Right.
And one of the things that I'm trying to do better at is a bit more diaphragmatic breathing. And someone who has grew up dealing with anxiety, a lot of times if we're dealing with stress and anxiety, we're chest breathing, so we're breathing up here and not really into our belly, so we're not working our diaphragm properly. And so I'm certain that
Well, lowering cortisol. So anxiety, stress, that type of stress is cortisol based, and that's why laughter is. So the person that I took my first laughter yoga class was from a gentleman who had suffered from anxiety attacks so bad that he was going to emergency room once a month.
wow.
And could not control it. And so someone said, hey, there's this thing called laughter yoga. I hear it's for anxiety. You should give it a try. And he enjoyed it, and it helped him so much that he became a leader, which in my case was kind of similar. I was laying there. It was a Playthink festival, and he was teaching it. And I was laying in the grass like, how in the heck do I feel this amazing after just all that silly stuff we just did? And I'm also the person who's been told, being in research, Jaimie, why are you laughing? You laugh too much. Quit laughing. Laughter has been my coping mechanism that I tried to inhibit because I was told to inhibit it. Once I was laying there in the grass laughing, and during laughter meditation, I was like, what in the heck? And I hadn't felt that good. I don't think ever I had felt that amazing. Because, when you, like I said, when's the last time you laughed for 5 minutes in a row? Like literally didn't stop laughing.
Probably the last comedy show.
Yay! See, and that is good. I'm so glad that you allow yourself to do that. But most people, they never laugh longer than a minute.
Well, see, this is why she says that. That's why this is so funny. Is because I don't hear her like ever. Every once in a while, like today, even actually, she made one laugh at a TV show, and I came running into the room like, "What's going on?" Because you don't hear her laugh like hardly, even when she does get quiet, get out there, puppy goes crazy. Like it's just a whole thing. And then she gets to a comedy show and it is on.
You let it out, and you
Or
should.
or the
and
movies.
You should, yeah, as you should. Oh, I love it when people laugh out loud in the movies. It is awesome. I love it.
Oh, I'm the queen of the. Probably Barbie.
Yeah.
Was probably the last thing the time, right? I don't remember who it was either Barbie or the comic, but they were both around the same time that we went.
So,
Yeah.
so you would be called my laughter blaster because you're someone who can laugh out loud and sustain it a little bit. But the thing is like, so many people don't. So many people inhibit it. And so when they try laughter yoga, they're like, this is the weirdest thing and like the most uncomfortable thing I've ever done. But then after they feel the effects, they're like, well, maybe I could be a little uncomfortable and it's okay. And then they get into it a little more and they're like, oh, well, heck, why not? Like, why not? And I love to see that transition of like, I'm scared of what you're telling me to do to this is amazing. And even if you only get 2 minutes of laughter, you're going to change the way you feel.
Yes, as an actor, so one of the greatest lessons that my favorite acting coach ever taught me is that any genuine emotion will outlive its usefulness. Meaning that, like, so the last time you had a really good cry, you probably couldn't stop.
Right. Oh, yeah.
You can't. And genuine emotion you cannot shut off, and that
includes laughter. Oh yeah,
includes laughter.
there's been a few classes where I have a few people who like, because we do laughter meditation, so we do the exercises to kind of get you ready to laugh and just get you out of your head, and then we lay down for laughter meditation. And there was a few classes that I've had people that they had a hard time stopping that laughter meditation, and they like apologize. I'm like, no, it's fine. It's a laughter yoga class. I'm not going to tell you not to laugh, but you do have to get control over it, right? And that's what in the class it's a meditation, which is the yoga nidra, a guided meditation, and it just, you have all this outward energy and all of this stuff happening and amazing, and it's like, it's not recommended to just get up and go.
Yep.
Because, right? I mean, and I'm the first one, I'm like shaking. You're like, wow, this is amazing. Now what? So you need that kind of downtime, that meditation. So I'm like, if you have to get up and go, at least do 5 really deep, long breaths.
Yeah.
Like just, so you're like, or even, whatever you got in there, you could be like, that's a laugh. That's a laugh.
It is.
But,
Yeah. No, I mean,
but then you just have to bring it all back, right? And so all this energy out here, and then you just bring it back in with a little bit of a meditation,
Yeah.
to just kind of be like, oh wait, I'm in control. Like this is me. I'm allowed to be whatever I am right now.
Relating it back to, have you ever watched those blooper reels where like 2 actors can't get through even the joke's over and you want to stop and you want to get through the scene because you're holding but you can't because the laughter is
you're just
outliving
laughing.
its usefulness. And you literally have to pull yourself out and like
yeah.
and breathe and exhale and then go, okay,
Exactly.
okay, let's try this again. And then the person will walk back into the room with the same look on their face and you just start laughing all over
Try
again.
to recenter yourself.
My goal in a laughter meditation is 8 to 10 minutes, but they say you don't want to go longer than 10 minutes. It's just too much for the body to withstand.
Yeah.
But 10-minute laughter meditation. Holy moly.
I like
Your
it.
body feels different afterwards.
So
your whole mind, body, and spirit is like a whole different place.
I love it.
Yes,
In
thank you.
all of your decades of research, I'm just going to stick with
Yeah.
that. In all of your decades of research, so do you believe that cannabis product, THC products, should be legalized medicinally or recreationally, or what is your? I feel like you've kind of answered this.
Yeah,
but I
I'm an
just wanna-
advocate on both levels. Definitely thinking that obvious medicinal uses. When I was in high school, I did research on hemp and all the things it would do physically, like all the textiles and all the things. And then that got me interested in what marijuana does. I also have a crackhead uncle that got me interested in disease of medication. And so at a very young age, I was interested. Of course, I'm always the girl that says why. That's why I was a researcher for 27. Like my parents were always like, quit asking why, Jaimie. So yeah, even in high school, I was like, oh wow, look at all this stuff that hemp does. And oh wow, look at all this stuff that marijuana does. And why is this illegal? Like, I
Exactly.
mean,
Right.
even as a teenager, I was like, why is this? And, not that I, love using it or anything, but I just didn't understand why it was illegal, even at a young age. And then getting into college and being able, to do all the things and be around all the people and realize like, what is really going on here? And that's why I got into the drug and alcohol research because I was, I learned about Netherlands, I mentioned that already. And it's like how drastic it can be in terms of the law and how drugs affect people based on the laws. So learning all of that, that's it ultimately what got me into all of that.
Yeah. I think I've mentioned, but Russell Brand, who I'm not necessarily a big fan of for reasons, but he did do a very interesting documentary probably a decade or more ago about how different countries treat users.
Drug users, all drugs.
Drug users, and how the ratio of drug abuse and overdoses in places where it's just completely illegal. Like there's actually with police, they go on a raid. This was in the UK, I believe, to people who are using heroin in their own home. And the cops somehow know about it, and they're not selling it. They're just
users,
using. And they bust in and they arrest them. And it's a whole thing. And then he goes to may or may not have been the Netherlands, but somewhere where there was a place where people could literally go and get you get a clean needle in a private room, and it's a whole thing.
I think Portugal. Would
No,
that be
this was
Portugal?
no.
Oh, okay.
It was somewhere within the EU, I believe.
Oh, okay.
But so which maybe Portugal's in the EU.
Yeah,
I
it
don't-
is.
it? Okay.
Yeah.
And then some countries
I think
put you to
so.
death,
Pretty
right? And there's
positive,
death
yeah.
penalty, for some drugs in some countries. And that's bizarre to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, they are putting people to death because they possess drugs.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
yeah. No, when I grew up touring with Dad, and we would get notices, if we were going to a certain country, like
Oh, yeah.
do not drugs, obvious, but also do not bring aspirin, do not bring. Like there were certain places where if you're found having this,
Like your own prescription, even.
your own prescriptions were okay, but it was there were certain over the counter
stuff. Yeah. Mhm. Wow.
medicines that we couldn't bring. But it's the same. So I know someone very close to me who was actually labeled a drug trafficker, I don't remember the exact, but they, so in Canada, you can buy, they're called 222s, and it's codeine,
Oh, okay, right.
and it's over the counter.
Mhm.
And they liked it, and they brought a whole mess of it back with them to the U.S.
Not realizing.
I think they knew.
Yeah.
Smuggler, that's the word I was.
Smuggler,
But
yes.
they were
uh-huh.
technically, and they had to go to court, and there was a whole, and they had to fake, I didn't know, I just,
Right. You just say, well, I got it there.
it works better than aspirin, so I bought a case of it.
Sorry.
I'll tell you who after someone I'm very close with who would buy a case of codeine.
Piece of codeine.
Yeah. So, but it's 222, it's not. It's for a headache.
Right.
you know,
Literally, yeah.
But
yeah.
it's not FDA approved in America, so they got into huge trouble for it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mhm.
But yeah, so there were places that we would go where we'd get, do not bring aspirin, do not bring, even like
The Sudafed.
Sudafed
That's
was
a big
absolutely
one.
a no.
You
But
can't even buy Sudafed. They have to go to pharmacy for Sudafed.
but over the counter, like ephedrine type stuff,
Yes.
like not ephedrine,
like
but
the mini thin stuff.
yeah,
Yes,
like
yes,
those,
yes. Uh-huh,
totally,
uh-huh.
all that stuff,
Like over caffeinated, like weird
Yeah.
stimulants, over the
yeah,
counter stuff.
yeah, all that
Mhm,
stuff was in,
mhm.
and they just, would tell you, go to the pharmacy wherever when you get there, and you'll find something similar.
Yeah.
But it was a whole thing.
Well, and I know that there have been a lot of arguments with lawmakers across the nation about whether or not when we look outside of the United States or even at other states here in the U.S. as to if you legalize, say, a substance like marijuana, what happens with crime rates, what happens with drug abuse, blah, 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 blah. I mean, from everything that I've seen on the fiscal side of it, they've been able to take dollars and do some wonderful things with it. Now, I've also heard arguments that they've seen, higher increases in like homeless populations and things like that. I don't know.
So California is one that they bring up all the time. Correlation does not equal causation. Is that So in California, for instance, we'd see a massive homeless increase in population. We've also seen rental and home prices
Go high.
Right.
Yeah.
are extraordinary. And then we'd see, more instances of wildfires and natural disasters being caused by power companies, especially there's been several major wildfires in California that have been caused by faulty transformers
Right.
that were, built in the 1920s, 1930s that should have been replaced in the 70s and are still in use. And so then because of that, insurance companies denying claims. So,
There's a whole
we
mix.
can look at
Yeah,
all,
there's a whole
and
mix, yeah.
nothing in there says, oh, these people are
Right.
homeless because they were going to the dispensary.
Exactly.
Well, Oregon is one of the few states that has decriminalized a lot of drugs, more than just marijuana. And now they're fighting, the homeless population and the this and the this. It's because of the drugs. I don't know, but they're fighting to get it recriminalized,
Right.
and that's not a good thing, because anytime you make a change, you expect like this surplus of chaos at first, but it's all going to calm down, and then the issues will resolve themselves.
Right.
I believe, but the homeless is not only because of the drug decriminalization. The homeless issues are, like you said, there's a whole plenty, and
Yeah.
it's because of the drugs. It's like, I would love to do a survey and find out how many of the homeless people are on drugs. That would answer a lot of questions.
Well,
Right.
and this is obviously this statement probably will not be looked favorably by distillers here, but but when you see a lot or observe homeless individuals, alcohol plays a big role.
Oh,
in
big
that.
time. Yeah.
And I mean, that's an easy substance to get your hands on when you're out. And again, that's not correlating those two things. They're not homeless because of
Because of alcohol.
Yeah.
But
alcohol's
I,
definitely easier to sometimes
exactly.
get.
And I
Yeah.
think that that
And
that's just a,
sometimes, homelessness and trauma, and then self-medicating, and because I can only imagine the kind of trauma that one faces
when you become homeless,
when
right?
they are involuntarily homeless, I should say.
Well, and it's interesting because on that topic, not that we're going to get deep into this because I don't even know, but I know there's been a controversial bill here in Kentucky. I don't know all about it, so I don't really speak about it. But I know that people arguing against it is stating that literally it will create that its language creates not necessarily a barrier, but to allow folks that are homeless, if they're camped out somewhere, to be arrested for that.
Right.
And so I know that's still being tossed around. I don't think that's been passed in Frankfurt, but
Well, some of the issues here is like some of the famous homeless people kept getting arrested because they wanted to have a place to go,
Right.
and the police have quit arresting them.
But a big part of that actually stems from the protests that were happening during Black Lives Matter.
Oh,
in the,
right, that, yeah.
Breonna, when
Okay.
they took over Justice Park and were encamped there for several months until the police. So the protests.
They were like, "We're going to arrest you not because you're
Yeah.
homeless, but because you're protesting,
camping,
Yeah.
but then because they were living there, so now they're declaring it's them houseless.
So, like, technically here in
'cause-
Lexington, they can arrest the homeless, but the police have quit arresting the homeless because it was really just they would just get back out on the street.
Well,
like,
and
there's just,
what
like,
you're
this
saying-
cycle.
Yeah.
because they are going to a place where they can stay and
get a
be
meal.
warm. And, maybe that's something that when we talk about dollars that are created by cannabis, maybe a portion of that, a small portion, could be to rehabilitate places or start places for, a lot of them are veterans that are
Right. Oh,
homeless
yeah.
or
Yeah.
displaced. And that money could be used to actually create a place, a safe space for them to live, which I know that there's probably a lot of therapy that needs to go on there as well, but I think that offers them a place to go.
Right.
And then we don't have to like maybe have bills that seem so controversial that we want, that we're going to go after people,
Arrest
the weakest
homeless.
among
Mhm.
us,
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
That just,
Oh, yeah,
we need to
definitely.
heal from a lot of things collectively. I know we need to start with ourselves, but I think that's something that if a leader is listening, maybe that's something that some of that money could go to.
Yeah, and to argue that drug use contributes to homelessness, yes, but cannabis use, marijuana use, like, not so much. I mean,
Right.
heroin, like you said, like the drugs that really take yourself away from you, I think could possibly, like you said, once they're at that bottom of the bottom, but at the same point, I don't think marijuana is contributing to that stuff, to that aspect of drug use and drug addiction, and that's where I think a big separation needs to happen when it comes to lawmaking and what people classify as drugs. Like you said, is it a Schedule 3? Is it a Schedule 1? It's not really even.
Sorry, I started laughing.
No,
because
no,
of-
you're fine.
Because
No.
of that line in Half Baked. Do you ever smoke dick for a joint?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So that took you there. Yeah. But that's the whole thing. You're like, I mean, you're not really, you're not out sucking dick for joints. I mean, it's not a thing. I've never done that. I don't know about anyone that has, but I have known people to suck
Yeah.
dick for other shit.
Well, I would think that cannabis, I believe, is more of an introspective substance,
Right.
whereas the other substances are more of taking you away completely rather
disappearing.
than going inward.
Right. Even
And-
alcohol. Even alcohol is get away,
Yeah.
get out of this. Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
I mean, the word alcohol itself, where it's derived from and how the spirits are used to pull derivatives from plants. It's also pulling your spirit away.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I think if we were utilizing cannabis with therapy, we could have a lot of healing. And I mean, there's a lot of psychedelic research going on right now too.
Yeah, no, and it's what's interesting. They say it's more introspective. So I've mentioned it before. My mom is an active addict. Has been my entire life on pretty much anything she can get her hands on for the most part. But she does not like weed. Like herb, I remember this one.
I know a few people like in that category as well.
Yeah, her best friend tried, and now she
speed. They're usually speedy. They want speed, all the
She's-
speed.
her opioids, alcohol. She actually
Okay, more of a downer then. Yeah,
she's
yeah.
very much and is her thing. I mean, but I've found cocaine in her. For a minute it was cocaine. But yeah, but I tried. So the last time I was there and staying with her for a minute, I tried because she had just had major spine surgery, and I was trying to, towards the end, because I'd stayed with her for an entire month, and towards the end of my visit, trying to get her away from the opioids, and I was like, hey, we can just have marijuana things delivered, and my mom also smoked cigarettes, but was like, I don't want to smoke. And I'm, okay. And, and so I was like, well, good news. We got edibles. We got tinctures. We got tea and honey and this and that. And I literally ordered like one of every possible
route of administration.
Yeah. Literally. I got tea. I got chocolate. I got gummies. I got cookies. I got this. I got and tincture and so she settled on a tincture that she liked because it wasn't too sweet. And so I gave it to her, and it's actually my favorite tincture as well. But then the next day she was like, I don't want that anymore. And literally it's a tincture where, I think it's like 1,000 milligrams in the whole bottle. And you're supposed
Like
to
a
take
drop,
like
yeah.
half
Like
a
a little
half a dropper
microdose.
worth or what. And I pick up she had drank the entire bottle.
Whoa.
That's an experience.
Yeah.
That's like that would be probably a little psychedelic. I'd
Yeah,
imagine.
and I was like-
that would get you a little.
But
out
She
there.
had a moment.
Yeah, that would be out there a little bit.
But that's the addict is like, oh, a half a dropper is what I'm supposed to take.
I'm gonna take the whole bottle.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
just drink the whole bottle.
And that's why it's funny. That's why marijuana is classified as a psychedelic. Like when I was just younger studying all this, I was like, why is it considered a psychedelic? I never understood that. But people have told me that if you eat enough of it,
Right.
like that's what I said earlier, like you eat enough of it, then you can get to that psychedelic point, but you're still not losing control.
But
like,
I
you're still not,
also-
you're just maybe seeing some things and maybe feeling a little awkward. But that's the thing that's come up right now.
Don't
People
follow the
kill-
guy you have a crush on with the grilled cheese sandwich to the shaman in downtown Los Angeles.
Not the best idea, bro.
Okay, friends, don't do that. That's also you're
But, you
not
know-
even supposed to eat grilled cheese when you
Right.
take ayahuasca.
Well, no,
but the
you-
shaman wanted a grilled cheese anyway.
And that just takes me back to the same that every medicine or every drug is a medicine. It is
Yes.
a medicine. It comes from that background of medicinal. So when you're like, oh, medicinal or recreational, I'm like, isn't it the same thing? I mean, like, yes, you can use medicine recreationally, but it's still a medicine, right? Like the recreational
Yeah.
part is a whole nother side of things, but
I mean,
I
there-
just, heck,
there-
people use their Xanax recreationally. It's like,
well, with
so there's
ayahuasca,
this levels, like there's a
Yeah.
certain level, and it's like, does recreational make it bad? I don't think so. I don't think enjoying it makes
No.
bad. It's addiction. It's like if you are going to steal, if you can't go to work, and all of these things.
Yeah.
And again, that's a medical issue.
if
I
you
mean,
can't, if you and I mean, addiction is a disease
Yeah.
of the brain. We know that
the drugs cause it to react differently.
Yeah.
well, and you're, the brain is starting to rewire too through that. And I think that's where, when we look at Johns Hopkins and folks that are doing psychedelic research and looking into fungi and to different mushrooms, not only do we know that things like lion's mane helps to regenerate neurons in the brain, but we start looking at psychedelic mushrooms. Well, if we can heal them, we can regenerate them. Can we rewire them? And there is a documentary out there, and again, the name is like going across, it's just not there. Maybe we'll put it in the comments. But where I watched them do in a laboratory setting through IV administration the DMT molecule. So that kind of goes back to kind of like ayahuasca.
Yeah, something you
But-
probably don't want to do. I mean,
Oh, no,
I know
no, no.
a lot of people that do DMT, but I'm like, I don't know.
Well,
like maybe with the
when the-
doctor.
When
when the Cal Arts kid from animation says, "Let's go do some DMT and huff some
Well-
nitrous in the basement," don't go, kids.
but
Maybe the nitrous. Skip the DMT.
Right.
No, I'm kidding.
well, with ayahuasca, there's two parts to that, and one of them is working as an MAOI or an inhibitor, and because the half-life of a substance like DMT is very, very small. It's very tiny. And so it has to be, you have to be able to prolong that. And so they did that through IV administration. And some of the stories of the folks, they were only out 5-10 minutes, but they said they were gone for 1,000
Hours,
years.
yeah.
No, like years.
Oh, wow.
And the
yeah.
things that you hear them say about that journey, from what I've read, DMT is highest naturally in our body at 2 points, and that's the moment we're born, but highest at the moment of death.
Really?
And there's stories about
I'm
seeing
gonna-
lights and those sort of
that's
things as we pass, or stories of near death experiences. And when you start to think about that, and you think about a light, we think about the pineal gland in the area that we would call like the third eye, or where we might experience enlightenment. What is happening naturally there, or is that Mother Earth letting us experience something we're going to experience when it's time to leave the body, but doing it in a way that's from the roots of this planet to speak to us? And so I don't know. I think fungi, mushrooms, cannabis, peyote, all of those substances, they fascinate me.
They have a place in
They do.
in humanity for sure.
They do.
And they can do magical things, and they can give people so much peace, and they can give people direction. And I mean, depression alone, like there's so many people who are just so chronically depressed that you don't see a way out. And psychedelics, from what I can tell, sometimes that's the only answer. And yes, it has been very much shown to help in lots of disorders.
Well, and there's plants out there that
and that's where Oregon came from. That's why Oregon kind of opened up their laws, because they're like, there's so many resources for people who are hurting and in pain that they need to have.
And some of the things that I've seen from Oregon, that's more of the negative of, again, may not correlate being the reason, but maybe if there was something in between that could have caused that, is maybe they didn't have something, structure in place that when that happened, kind of like there's the argument over whether we should have needle exchanges for people.
Right. They didn't have the right support.
But the right support, not just for something like that, but for any other substance and how you're going to use it. Obviously, if we just throw out a bunch of substances to the general public and everyone's just, hodgepodging it down in the basement with nitrous, it's going to get interesting.
It does get interesting.
Yeah.
But if we have some sort of like guideline, we do have shamans, we do have healers, we do have therapists, we do have psychologists, psychiatrists, folks who are working with people where we can, I say all the time, I know UK has an integrative medicine department, but we really need to bring Eastern and Western philosophy together when it comes to healing. It's absolutely necessary to do that. And
we have to just quit treating disease. We have to see.
We have to
promote wellness.
It's
a wellness concept is what I think. What I think you're talking about.
I think the journey is, what's the causation? It's kind of like,
it's not about the disease. It's about the wellness and staying healthy.
Exactly.
How do we prevent getting these diseases?
Exactly. And you were talking about herbal medicine. Over the past several years, I've been studying a lot of plants and growing plants and making some of my own tinctures and stuff just for myself. And there are a lot of plants that's right here in our forests and woods that are miraculous to use, and some of those I'm not going to name them because I don't want I don't want the powers to be like, okay, well, now we got to go after that plant.
Now we got to get the nutmeg out of there,
right? Right. But it's really interesting.
Or the people that would have meant, ginseng poaching is a problem in Kentucky. I learned that when I moved here. I was like, who knew that ginseng was
well, ginseng's a whole category.
such a big deal in the black market?
Well, it's
Right?
the wild ginseng that's
hard to get.
Yeah. That's top dollar in Japan.
Before we go, I do have one question for you. So if you were going to have a laughter yoga session followed by a dinner, if you want to.
Oh, this is perfect. Even
right?
better.
This is I know Jaimie well, by the way.
Even better.
Followed by a dinner with 3 celebrities, historical figures, what have you. Who would those 3 people be?
Well, I did think about this, and my first thought was, wait, I can't just go. But then I was like, wait, George Carlin came up first.
I love that.
Oh, nice.
Then we have Janis Joplin.
Nice. All right.
And then why the hell not have Jesus Christ?
There you go.
Wow.
Wow. The philosopher, the musician, and the comedian.
Exactly.
I mean-
Exactly. I think it would be perfect. I would have such a good time.
Can we come?
Right?
Yes, right?
I feel like this now needs to be a movie.
And I'm definitely going to smoke salmon.
Nice.
And do the mashed sweet potatoes and
Delicious.
the black bean coconut rice.
I like
Nice.
it. That's quite a dish.
Also, before we leave, if you don't mind, I brought a little gift from
Oh,
us.
I was gonna have one last question
yeah.
for
Okay.
Jaimie, and then
Yeah,
we're
sorry
done.
about
I
that.
promise. I promise.
We like to talk.
So, what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given in your life?
That's going to sound cliche.
I like a cliche.
Graduate from college.
Yeah.
It has changed my life, but that's because I from my college education, that's where it got me into research, and so it
yeah.
definitely changed my life. And had I not gone to college, my life would not be where I'm at right now. So
I dig it. All right.
a little cliche, but that's
Graduate, kids. Do it.
get that degree.
Be like Jaimie. Don't be like me. So on that note,
And before we leave, brought you a little gift from Ancient Romans.
Not that
but
if you don't go to college is bad. It's just
No.
it changed my life.
I went for a semester.
Yes, yes. See, but then you realized like I think you should go at least like
Yeah, no, absolutely go.
yeah.
so I brought you these really cool earrings.
I love it.
So you can have some little cannabis leaf
I love it.
earrings.
Yes,
And then from Ancient Aromas, I brought you some, after a long day of research, you can soak in some mango and coconut. That is our
yeah.
bath soak. It's Canna Soak. It's got some CBD in there. It's great.
Heck yeah,
Nice,
I've
relaxing.
never even heard of soaking with it. And so
right?
I have a great bathtub.
Oh, it's so good.
and I love hot baths. I actually was tonight. I was like, do I take a bath when I get home? So this is
Yeah, there you go.
incentivizing the hot bath. When
I
I
love
And
a
you don't have
topical.
to. You don't use a whole bag. You can dose that as you would like. And I mean, you can if you want, but there's many baths in there. And then I got your roll-on. So if you've had a long day sitting at the office, you can have a little roll-on of Canna Roller
okay.
XL Chill.
and these
here,
are all CBD, or do they have?
yes, they do have CBD in them.
Do they have
and
THC in them?
No.
No. So just the CBD.
Well,
Okay,
these are
okay.
full spectrum products. So
Okay,
yes,
okay,
there,
okay.
My bad.
there is a THC in there up to the legal limit of 0.3.
Oh, okay, yeah, because this says
so,
1,000 milligram of CBD, which is awesome.
And
Okay.
then you have anointed massage and body oil. So that's really good. And then it's cold outside still. So here's you some citrus mint lip balm.
Heck
So
yeah, I use lip balm all year though. So.
well, and sitting here talking, I'm gonna need
Right.
I'm gonna need some.
I probably
But-
I am. It's funny. That's out of all of this, that might be my favorite.
Nice.
The lip balm.
I'm a lip balm person. I'm like, where's my super special lip stuff?
Well, I want to bring you a little special gift, and we appreciate you coming
are
out
all-
and
this is
talking about it and
amazing.
sharing your journey and talking a little bit about your history and research and stuff, because that's really important, especially as we move forward in the world of cannabis.
It really is important, and
Yeah.
and I just my last kind of mention of anything about it is just I just hope that people quit judging it based on falsehood. Falsehood. One thing we didn't talk about was that crazy movie where
Oh, Reefer Madness.
Yes, Reefer Madness.
We've talked about that many times.
and
the
it's like that is not true. That does not happen.
xenophobia of the
absolutely
19
doesn't happen.
Yes.
And my main thing is I just want people to understand that the truth behind cannabis, and I think most people do. It's just they have that weird wall
Yeah.
that we have to break down. So I appreciate you all doing this to help get that wall broken
Well,
down.
thank you for coming on. We appreciate you. And as we
absolutely.
move further into legalization here in Kentucky, we'll have to have you back on.
I would
Yeah,
love it. I would
absolutely.
love it.
Perfect. All right. Well, that's it. For laughter yoga, where can people get more information?
That's right. That's right. The Laughter Yoga and the Yoga Nidra. You can find me on Facebook or Meetup, and it's Laughter Yoga with Jaimie Brown. And my name is spelled like Jaime, Jaime.
Okay.
Perfect. So,
That's where it's unbelievable how many ways you can spell Jaimie. It really, truly is.
I love it. So go follow Jaimie and get you some laughter yoga, and you'll feel better.
Oh, definitely. And I offer a free online. You can try it from the comfort of your home, and I do that the third Tuesday of every month. And you can just
Okay.
get online and give it a shot. So,
I might have to pop in there.
yeah, you probably
Right?
want to. I imagine.
That's exciting.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that being said, thank you all at home for listening, for watching. Please give us a like, a follow, a subscribe, what have you. And you can now listen to Cannalachia on all of your various streaming devices. So Whichever is your favorite, give us a listen.
See you next week.
Bye.
My Mickey, my moon to me, just go with me. Everybody wanna play while I'm on the play. Everybody better want to play. Better read that way, the Bible. Better 55 fans for the rain. My mom is about gold gate. If you have with me, if you want to play, never he got love to breath. We can let it on. Come on, Cannalachia.
Woo! I like that song.